It's action. It's drama. It's comedy. It's Decian, the superhero webcomic. Decian's got superhero antics and sexy girls. Read it now at Decian.com. DASIEN.com.
Oh my gosh, this is so great!
Welcome to The Pullbacks Origins Episodes. Join TFG1 Mike as he grills this week's guest on just how they got into reading comics and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy The Pullback.
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe!
Showtime, Synergy.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Doggy Bag. Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. This is one of hopefully 3 Origins episodes based on the What's on Joe Mine crew and their comic reading. I am, of course, your host, TFG1 Mike, and if you have not heard one of the Origins episodes before here inside the Pull Bag, basically it's a discussion on how myself and the guest of that episode got into reading comics, got out of reading comics, whether they still read comics, whether they're Marvel, DC, or just don't care, whether they like giant robots or, Cobra killing machines. As I said, hopefully one of 3 this time around. We have Mike from What's on Joe Mine, because I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name.
Irizarry.
Irizarry. Okay, there we go.
Just like it looks.
How
are you today, Mike?
Pretty good. So Mike is here. As I said, he is one of the 4, 5, 6 originating members of What's on Joe Mine, the only famous internet fan cast about the world of G.I. Joe.
We'll take what we can get.
Yeah. So, all right. Normally how we start this off is I usually ask a question, something like, was there a certain family member, a friend, a parent, grandparent? Mike, how did you who first said, here, Mike, here's this comic with Transformers in it, go leave me alone instead of watching TV?
It wasn't even that. It was the real comic guy in the family. To this day, is my older brother Rob. He's 2 years older than me, and when he was a reader at a very young age, and when he was 5 and I was 3, he had probably 8, 9 comics that a family member had given to him, and had read them back and forth and upside down until the covers were coming off and all that other good stuff, and that he started to teach me how to read using old issues of Justice League of America.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so there I am, 3 years old, sitting there reading comic books, wondering why sometimes the roll call for the Justice League doesn't match who's actually in the book. And
yeah.
That's kind of how it started. It's snowballed from there, and it kind of has ebbed and flowed over the years. I'm actually, as we were talking about before we started recording, I don't actually read comic books at the moment. It's more of a financial thing than anything else. But I do try to keep up. I'll still sneak over to my brother's place and read his comics because he's still picking up entirely too many titles every month.
Yeah, that seems to be the problem with a lot of comic collectors, whether they be old ones or new ones. They still pick up entirely too much. I've tried to limit myself, as many of the other listeners will know from listening to my original Origins episode. I've tried to limit myself to characters, but at the same time, I still have maybe 10, 15 ongoings that that I get every month or so. All right, so after your brother taught you how to read with comics, as a kid, what comics or what franchises interested you to read comics from?
Well, Rob is a big Batman guy, and so for a number of years, that was kind of the theme from Halloween. I kind of gravitated towards Batman because I was a natural Robin for him. But when
That sounds so wrong.
well, I mean, we have
I know it's mean, but
my grandma made Halloween costumes for us that still are intact. Which I mean, like real corduroy and cloth kind of costumes, and that we wore for like he was Batman, I was Robin for a couple of years, and then I graduated to the mantle of the Bat, and it was a very Dick Grayson-esque tale for me. But but I also on my own, I also kind of I learned to appreciate Spider-Man. I became a very big Spider-Man fan, and from an early age to where I still have a copy of again going back to when I was 3-4 years old, my little golden books copy of Spider-Man's ABCs.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's been a long disease, man, a long disease.
Yeah, I remember this wasn't even a comic, and I've said this many times before. For me, like reading in books in school and all that stuff, I think it was like, I don't know, it had to be like, it was probably either kindergarten, first or second grade. In the school library, I found some Transformers. It wasn't a golden book. It was some Transformers actual story book, and it had everything to do with Wheelie.
Yeah.
Which at this point I don't even care. The sad thing is someone found that online for me somewhere and said, "Here, look." And I looked at it and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's going for obscene amounts of money, which it should not be going for that amount of money."
Should any of it really?
Yeah, depending. All right, so Batman, Spider-Man. What are some of your favorite Batman stories before the New 52?
Well, because really the list would be the same, because
Okay.
The New 52 has been terrible for Batman. But we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What I always liked about Batman was he was very versatile, and so it tends to be Superman who's more famous for those one-shot, out-of-continuity, fantasy stories. But I think they really did a good job with a number of Batman tales too, under the Elseworlds title in the 80s and 90s. Gotham by Gaslight comes to mind. The subsequent sequels weren't as good, but the first one was real solid.
Yeah, I've got that. I have yet to read it because we will be covering it at some point here inside the pull bag, but I have yet to read that one.
Killing Joke is every bit the masterpiece people say it is. They're the ones that really stick out to me. I like it. Batman is kind of a touchy subject for me these days because I don't
all
think
this news. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the movies are one thing, and it's its own continuity, and that they're fine.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the movies doing whatever they want. You have to do things a little bit differently when you're trying to appeal to a mass audience than when you're dealing to a comic book audience.
Yeah.
But
all right, so what are your issues with Batman nowadays?
he hasn't really been at all interesting for about 15 years.
15. Wow.
I mean, it's just that Batman has become this magic cure-all potion for the DC universe. It's, well, whenever there's a problem that's too big, send in Batman. He'll solve it regardless. He's Batman. He always wins.
Yeah, with his sliver of kryptonite.
Yeah, and it just, not that the heroes shouldn't win in the end. I think ultimately that's kind of what comic books are for. To build that. There are mythology, I think, as a culture, but not that the hero shouldn't. But like Batman hasn't been challenged in that long. I think the best thing they've done with Batman in the last 2 decades was kill him. I think passing the mantle on to Dick Grayson was probably the most interesting thing to happen to Batman in the last 15 years. I wish they had kept it that way. There's nothing else to do with Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. That's only because I'm a huge fan of Grayson as well.
I am too. He's probably my favorite DC character, but and and mind you, I'm not necessarily a fan of Dick Grayson as Batman. It's like I really I've enjoyed Nightwing when he's had his own book. I enjoy him in groups.
Yeah.
I would miss the Nightwing character, but
You mean to say you are going to miss the Nightwing character, correct?
yeah. So it's
I don't. You know, Forever Evil hasn't, as of this recording, has not yet finished up. We haven't gotten the issue where everything is supposed to come ahead for Dick Grayson in the New 52. But news has come out that, after issue 29 of the ongoing for Nightwing, Kyle's not going to be on it. The final issue is going to be issue 30. So they're basically killing the book.
Mm.
I don't know if they're doing that because of sales or because of the storyline in Forever Evil that Jesus Johns created or anything like that. But yeah, I'm currently getting maybe 6 DC titles, including Masters of the Universe.
Ugh.
No, it's we'll talk about that later, but it's actually pretty good.
I have a reputation to maintain.
Well, we could always have some Showtime synergy.
Where the guys in furry shorts are concerned, I have to maintain my reputation.
Yes. But as I said, I'm getting about 6 DC titles right now. It's probably going to cut back to 3 once Nightwing ends.
Yeah, it's really I don't like hardly anything they're doing over there. So
I like
Aquaman has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Of all the guys to just show up and be like, "Hey, this is a really good comic," Aquaman. Okay.
This is outrageous.
Yeah. I don't get it, but sure.
Yeah.
Not going to complain.
As long as, specifically to the Bat family, as long as Gail Simone stays on Batgirl permanently for the time being, as long as they don't try to fire her again, I will be perfectly happy just reading Batgirl. Because Batgirl, that series, Batgirl and Nightwing are my top 2 from DC.
I'll be honest, I have not read that title.
You haven't read Batgirl?
I have not.
Some people might say, oh, well, they're going in reverse because somehow she miraculously starts walking again and goes from Oracle to being Batgirl again. But after that, the book is more of a psychological superhero book than just a generic, hey, I'm going to go out and save the day, and I have my mission where, I can't kill anybody because my parents got murdered and everything else. And, it's a good, solid story because I love anything to do with the Gordon family, Commissioner and Barbara herself. Yeah, Batman. Steve Megatron, the co-founder of GCRN, he basically was the one that actually turned me on to even collecting comics. I started full time in 2012, and it was Death of the Family. Oh, it was the Return of the Joker, and I read that. I started reading Zero Year. I went back and I read Court of Owls. Out of everything Snyder has done since the New 52, Court of Owls is his best work. That was a really, really awesome story. Death of the Family ended with no climax. Well, it was very anticlimactic. And Zero Year, for me personally, is a huge mishmash of, okay, this I like, this I don't. Oh my God, I'm done with this book.
Yeah, it was tough to follow. Especially speaking from a more casual reader's standpoint, I don't know what they were going for there. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to determine editorial direction out of DC these days. Makes me sad.
Yeah. All right. So, what about Spidey? What are you reading from Spidey, or what are some of your favorite Spidey stories over the years?
Well, let's see. Over the years, I mean, going back to the classic stuff. I mean, even if you go back to the 70s with the Harry Osborn drug stories, they were, fantastic and probably 20 years ahead of their time. Craven's Last Hunt is a great story. Just issue to issue, Spider-Man's generally been a better read. What I like about Marvel with Spidey, and they're not afraid to take those chances that DC is with Batman.
Yeah.
Spider-Man makes changes. Sometimes they make changes back. Sometimes it doesn't work. Granted.
Yeah, you don't want to make any more deals with the devil.
Yeah, no. Like that was I kind of liked Spidey with the public identity because we were out of things for Peter Parker to do. It's kind of like Steve Rogers. We get it already. He's broke. He takes pictures for the Bugle. He's a lot smarter and more talented and more savvy than this, but somehow he can't come up with a better way to make money. I don't understand. It works fine when he's high school, college age, but as Peter's been, he's kind of comic aged into his mid-20s by now. He should have his feet under him. A guy who's that smart should have his feet under him at least. But from Spidey's standpoint, even what they're doing right now with Octavius in Peter's body is great from a storytelling standpoint. They're not going to keep it that way. It's not a forever deal. I know there's people out there that spit acid when you bring that up, but
see, that's the thing. When I jumped on to collecting, I jumped on at $6.98.
Yeah.
Someone told me you have to, in order to understand Superior, you have to read at least $6.98 to $700 to get the ending. And I read it, and I thought it was great, brilliant, and Superior has done so much for and against Peter's own life.
Yeah.
I mean, Octavius has gotten him a doctorate. He's got him his own company. At the same time, he screwed all of Peter's personal life relationships. And it's been great. And the news came down that they, like you said, it's not going to stay this way, which for me, that's what sucks, is that it's not going to stay Octavius. And, hey, we just have to do that because, hey, it's a new movie. Yay!
Well, I think, too, from a storytelling perspective, I don't think that, we know Octavius's motives. Yeah. We know he's not really a good guy. He's just trying to be a better good guy than Peter was out of spite. Yeah. So eventually, he's going to quit looking at himself in the mirror, and he's going to turn the page on that and just go back to being Otto Octavius. You know this. This is how it has to be. So Peter Parker coming back almost has to happen.
I mean, I'll read it, to see. I have nothing against Dan Slott or his writing.
He is one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah. What I don't like is, as you said earlier about the editorial stuff, is how these companies go about bringing these changes just because of something, or because they want to bring in the mainstream readers from the new film that's coming, or that's what I more so don't like about it. Sure, I mean, I'll be somewhat optimistic about seeing how Peter is going to come back, and we kind of already have seen it a little bit. I have not read issue 26 yet, but issue 25, he showed up briefly, and then went back to his Neverland hiding spot. But yeah, no, Superior is awesome and was awesome, and I absolutely love that direction, because my thing is, you can only tell so many of the same stories with Spidey versus Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, Venom,
Yeah.
I did like what they did with Superior Carnage. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Talk about a character I never had any affinity for at all.
Yeah.
Well, Carnage was a spin-off of Venom, of course, and
yeah,
when Venom first came around was back in late 80s. My first run of collecting Amazing Spider-Man. And, McFarlane had a big hand in it, was doing the art at Spidey at the time, and he showed up. I believe he was introduced in Spider-Man, I think it was 300. And I remember counting, or 299 specifically, but basically he shows up in issue 300. Mm-hmm. Basically, Venom is on at least one page of the book 28 out of the next 30 issues.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there and counting that out and going and telling my brother about this. Is like, can we please not have Venom anymore? I'm so tired of Venom. And it was terrible because, again, it was like so many of Todd McFarlane's ideas, great concept with questionable execution.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat your brains, whatever. whatever, dude. Just come on and let's fight. But I can't, you just picture yourself in Spidey's shoes. Like, I don't even have witty banter for this. Just come on.
Yeah, let's go.
But I conversely, Dan Slott, like I said a minute ago, he's one of my favorites. Whether it's his run from She-Hulk or his very short run on The Thing, I was absolutely enthused when I heard he was getting the reins for Spider-Man, and similarly tearing my hair out when I heard the news that they were going to kill Peter Parker, and then I stopped and actually read it and was like, oh my god, this is actually awesome. And so I don't think enough people talk about Dan Slott. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he really is. He's, like I said, I've only read from 698 to whenever now is for that story, and at this point, because it's ending, I'm just gonna wait for the trade for the final arc. I don't know. I just can't. For me, I need to read it, and this is something you can mention here in a minute. For me, I did have this thing of, I have to get the single issues because I want to know what's going on. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'd rather wait for the trade to see the whole story, the bigger picture at once than.
I've kind of become a trade guy. I never thought that would be the case, but when I do buy a book, it's trades.
Yeah.
It's much easier for me to, at one sitting, to throw down $20-$25 than it is to worry about $4 every month.
Yeah. All right. So, how does the Joes come into your comics? How does that all happen? We all know you're a huge G.I. Joe fan.
And really, it did start with the comics for us. Again, my brother and I, he was 9, I was 7 in 1982. So we are right in the wheelhouse of the minds that they're trying to corrupt to their side. The mad genius Kirk Bazigian, as I like to call him. And so we see the ad for the issue number 1 on TV. Mm-hmm. And we're both kind of sitting there, and we knew that G.I. Joe was a property from the 60s. We knew about 12-inch Joe. We actually, we had Bullet Man from the old G.I. Joe line. We didn't have any other Joes, but we had Bullet Man. And I remember we looked at one another and we kind of smiled, and because you don't see comic books on television. It's 1982. It's like, this isn't what you advertise on TV. And truthfully, we weren't able to verbalize it as such at the time, but it felt a little desperate. It was just like, man, this can't be any good if they're trying this hard to sell it to us. We just weren't used to something coming after us as 9 and 7-year-olds that hard. It was just, hey, buy this. Blah, 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 blah. This is it. This is the one. Blah. And it was just so in your face, and it just felt a little forced. Well, fast forward a couple of months. There used to, where we went to church on Long Island, there used to be a convenience store across the street. Mm. And occasionally we would stop in there afterwards. It'd be, there's comic books, there's baseball cards, whatever. We'd throw some change at it while we're there. And I was sick on that particular Sunday, and Rob comes home. He's got G.I. Joe number 5, which if you go back, you read, it's kind of a standalone issue, where Cobra is trying to capture the Mobat, the tank, because it's top of the line, state of the art stuff in terms of what's inside that tank. And they even go through some exposition rather at the beginning of the story that it's like, hey, it just looks like a normal tank, but this is what this baby can do. And it's so what they do is they organize a parade, and they invite the motor pool at Fort Wadsworth to be part of this parade. And Steeler, Clutch, and Breaker are driving the tank in the parade with General Flag up in the grandstand. Mm-hmm. And underneath the grandstand, of course, is Cobra Commander and the Baroness, and there's this whole marching band starts putting on this show all around the tank, and it's not something that they're ready for, and they realize that the float behind them is this giant, armored thing that's looking to just swallow them up. So it becomes this chase through the streets of New York, with this Cobra marching band, and this giant float thing chasing down a tank that doesn't have any ammunition for its guns.
Wow.
So it was really a neat story, really well crafted. Just kind of a standalone issue, real fun ending, a little unbelievable, but it worked. It worked for what we were dealing with. It was a showcase piece for Steeler and the tank, and for General Flagg a little bit. And from that moment on, we were hooked. We were in. And a couple of weeks later, he got a couple of the figures, I got a couple of the figures, and we're off to the races. Some 30 years later, still going.
So because I have yet to dig into any of the IDW stuff, but what is going on currently are you reading the Joe stuff now?
I get caught up with the trades on Larry Hama's book.
Okay.
I don't want to. I hate to badmouth it, but I have been able to stay plugged into the IDW stuff.
Oh, really?
It's a little too. A
little too Sigma 6?
No, not even that. It doesn't treat the property right. It doesn't give enough respect to the property. I think it's they have this unfortunate habit of they'll introduce a character and give him one of the classic code names, and not really do anything with that character and kill him off a couple panels later, which always is that's a massive pet peeve of mine when you basically I off the top of my head I can remember them doing this with Bazooka. They did it with Barbecue, where they're giving this guy this code name to get the longtime fan to go, oh hey, and that's all they're doing with it. They're just yanking your chain to get an oh hey reaction out of you. I mean, it would actually bother me less if they spent a couple of pages building up who Bazooka was and then killed him off, or they spent a couple of pages, getting to know Barbecue and then killed him off. That would bother me less because at least they're treating him like a character, but they're just treating him like a code name. There was some interesting stuff going on in Cobra Files, which was, like the Chuckles Spotlight book. But even there too, they killed him off. So it just kind of seems, it's almost like it's G.I. Joe done for the 90s comic fan, and I don't have a real warm place in my heart for the 90s comic fan. I think comics in the 70s and 80s, the end of the Silver Age, they were fun. They were written for all ages. They supposed to be entertaining, and sometimes the good guys won, sometimes the good guys lost, fine. But then somewhere in the 90s, everything got to be about blood and killing and body counts and who was a bigger ass kicker, and it was terrible, and we've backed away from that somewhat. I don't have to deal with 6 Punisher books on my shelf anymore, but
well, there's not even one currently.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's stuff coming up for Punisher, but there's not currently an ongoing because you can't count Thunderbolts.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to diss the Punisher. I think the Punisher is a great character, but I don't think the Punisher is necessarily one of those guys you build the company around, and that's what they were doing for a good part of that time. The 90s, everybody raves about Wolverine and X-Men, and I think Larry Hama did a great job building Wolverine into an actual character, and then you'd turn over and you'd read an X-Men book, and he was just almost a different person in X-Men, and in the X-Men, Wolverine was just this wild, rabid killing machine that was barely restrained and generally poorly drawn, and so it these warm spots that a lot of the fans that are out there today have, I don't share it with them, and I think that's maybe why I'm a cranky old man as far as comics go these days. Is that, I hearken back to I'm kind of the last entry from Silver Age type storytelling.
Mm. Yeah, you're not the only one. It's not the stories with the stuff, because I've read some of the Punisher 90s stuff since doing this podcast. You're not the only one. But it's not the stories that irk me, it's the art. Oh.
Generally, exaggerated and terrible, and I'm not sure what anatomy they're drawing, but most of the time it's not human.
It's Teenage Mutant Alien Turtles, that's what it is.
Yeah, just everybody it looks like this steroided out fiend. I'm not saying superheroes shouldn't look fit. I'm not saying superheroes shouldn't look more than fit. They're superheroes. They bench press Buicks. This is what they do. But at the same time, let's keep them within the species, Let's dial it back a little bit. I tend to think that a guy like George Perez, who's kind of carried the standard the last 40 years or so as far as how to draw the superhero, the human superhero. We should be paying more attention to that guy than we should to some of the folks who we technically grew up with in the 90s. Some of it's just terrible.
All right, so Marvel or DC or both?
It's tough right now. I think Marvel does a better job of storytelling. Right now, I'm definitely in the Marvel camp. Historically, I was, growing up, Super Friends was on TV the whole time. So I will always hold DC's heroes in a high regard. So I guess the answer is both. I wish it was both right now. But, man, I hate the New 52.
All right, well, if you hate the New 52, I'm hoping that this is a yes, but have you ever seen Batman Beyond?
Yes.
Have you seen the whole series?
I can't say I've seen the whole thing, but I've caught good chunks of it. Probably.
Have you seen Return of the Joker?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you see the last, well, technically it's the last episode, but the season episode epilogue from Justice League?
Yes.
Okay, good. Batman Beyond started 2012 by Adam Beechin. Currently it's written by Kyle Higgins, the Nightwing scribe, and he is playing in the DCAU like nobody else's business, and it's awesome. The first title was Batman Beyond Unlimited for print. The second title for print is Batman Beyond Universe. It's Batman Beyond 2.0 if you get it digitally. Just simply amazing.
Nice.
The storytelling, the characters, the callbacks to everything else in the DCA. It's just great. It's better than the New 52.
Well, that's not setting the bar real high. But yeah, Batman Beyond was a great property, and I really enjoyed it. It came on at a time where I wasn't watching a lot of TV. It was kind of at a weird place for me. But I went back and caught it all later. Thank God for reruns.
Yes,
and I was not expecting to enjoy it. Let me preface it by that. I was not. I'm looking at this thing and I'm seeing, well, okay, so Bruce Wayne's old now, but we don't know what happened. Where's Dick Grayson? Where's Barbara Gordon? She would turn up pretty easily enough. Where's Jason Todd, or rather Tim Drake? Where are the characters that we love? They wouldn't just disappear. And I just, stupid me, just had to be patient, and everything would reveal itself. Yeah. But I wound up really liking Batman Beyond a lot.
Yeah. I'm telling you, if you go back and you read the second trade for it is coming out in April. Volume 1 is 10,000 Clowns. Volume 2 coming out is Batman Beyond, Batgirl Beyond. And it collects all of Adam's run. And then currently Kyle is writing 2.0, which is basically takes place a year after a year after Adam's run. And it's so good.
Very
It
nice.
is so good. I cannot say enough positive things about Batman Beyond Universe. It's just great. Absolutely love reading that. What else? Do you have a preference in the art style as far as, are you one of those guys that I prefer that they draw it traditionally, or, oh, I like digital art? Do you have a preference at all?
I don't. I think well done is well done.
Right.
And however you get to that is great. I can think of there have been a couple of books over the years. There was I'm trying to think of the title of it, but it was a Spider-Man book, but they did it in watercolors. And I just bought it because I thought it was a really interesting take on Spider-Man, who's normally, Spidey's everything's really crisp, on as far as his uniform's all segmented up with the webbing, and he's always swinging around New York, and there's these lights and, all this stuff going on. So the story itself was crap, but it was real interesting visually. So yeah, I can't say I've got a preference. I think good is good.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else you want to bring up as far as your origins go?
Oh, that's about the extent of it. I've kind of, like so many of the comic guys, they've I've become more of a TV guy as time's gone on.
Yeah.
I kind of hear about things first if it's on the tube.
Yeah.
But it's I would say that there's one book that I've really enjoyed that hasn't come up yet in more recent times. Really like Robert Kirkman's Invincible.
Oh, interesting.
I think for when he first started that book, it was really a fresh take, and they gave him the opportunity to crisp up the lines in the Image universe, so to speak. I think he did a really good job with that, because it's not just all about Invincible. He kind of gets out and plays well with others as well. So that would be a book that if I was going to recommend somebody to go back, and you go all the way back to the beginning if you want, because it's a fun read. You'd enjoy it.
Very cool, very cool. All right, you got anything you want to pimp out?
No, we're going to be hitting the busy season of What's on Joe Mind coming up, so we should have a lot more in the way of special editions and just regular episodes where we're talking to folks. JoeCon is coming up in April, so we're building up to that. We've got more shows. We'll be making some more public live appearances over the summer as well. And just stay with us, whatsonjoemind.podbean.com. And we'll keep you posted. Follow us on Facebook, of course, at What's on Joe Mind. Follow us on Twitter. My handle is at Mike Irizarry 1. Gary is Gary Godso. Justin is Generals Joe's. Chuck is Chuck Dog 1999. So that's the fearsome foursome right there. And of course our affiliated podcast, the Full Force, with Dave, Chris, and Eddie. Listen to them as well. If you like us, you'll love them. More focused on the action force and European aspect of G.I. Joe collecting and really interesting stuff. They do things differently than we do, but with the same kind of sensibility and juvenile humor that you've come to love.
Very cool, very cool. All right, well, coming up next inside the pull bag is Marvelous March. We're taking a look at episode 61 will be a issue or trade of Captain America and then a trade of Hulk. 62 is 2 Spidey trades, 63 is 2 Iron Man trades, and 64 is 2 Wolverine trades. After that, who knows what's going to show up in the pull bag? I have no idea. For now, I am TFG1 Mike with
Mike Irizarry.
Make it your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
Hey, I'm Gary.
I'm Mike.
I'm Chuck.
And I'm Justin.
Join the four of us every week on the internet's #1 and longest-running G.I. Joe podcast, What's on Joe Mind?
It's Joe news, reviews, and interviews like you've never heard them before, delivered right to your MP3 player.
Our guests include Jason Marsden, Kevin Michael Richardson, and Matt Yang King from G.I. Joe Renegades, Larry Hama, Robert Atkins, and John Barber from IDW Publishing, and many more from around the online Joe community.
Yeah, it's guys talking about Joe. Think of it as Joe Talk meets sports talk. And we make fun of Chuck.
Right, and we, hey, again?
Come on, Chuck. We're just kidding, kinda.
Sometimes Chuck makes fun of himself.
Right, and we, okay, seriously, this is just getting ridiculous now.
It's What's on Joe Mind, every week on the Geekcast Radio Network, InsidePulse.com, Stitcher Smart Radio, and iTunes. Download and listen today.
I suppose I still can't say something about Transformers, can I?
Come
Good.
on, man.
No.
What about sports?
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's all right.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekcastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.